Hello everyone, welcome to After School Adventures. My name is Susanna and this week we have some fun experiments all about evaporation that you will hopefully be able to do at home. But we are going to be using boiling water for both of them, so you're going to want to grown up around. We're going to be making our very own cloud in a jar, and we will be making some salt crystals. Let's get started with the cloud in a jar. All right, so let's get started with our cloud in a jar. So for this experiment, we're gonna need our jar. We're gonna need some hairspray. We're gonna need some ice. I've got in this bowl here. I have about 5 pieces. That should work fine. And we are going to need some boiling water. So first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your freshly boiled water, you're gonna put it in your jar. I'm just gonna go grab mine. All right, so I have mine here. It's really, really hot, so I have to be very careful. And I'm just gonna pour it in my jar. All right, so I'm doing about half. And then I'm quickly going to take my hairspray and give a little spritz inside and cover it up. And then we're just gonna put our ice right on top. And now the cloud will start to form. It takes a little bit of time, but not very long. So what's happening now is that the hot water is evaporating. We'll talk more about that later. And then it's getting cooled by the ice. And it's making a little cloud in the jar. So it's in there, I can see it. But I think it would be easier to see if I did this. And there it goes. And it smells nice too. So let's talk a little bit more about why that happened. So this works because of something called evaporation. Water and pretty much everything else can exist in 3 physical states: gas, liquid, and solid. Evaporation is the word we use to describe something changing from a liquid to a gas. Real clouds in the sky are formed this way. There's water in the world, and something changes and raises the energy of the little water drops, usually heat or sunshine, and then the water evaporates and it sits as a cloud in the sky. In our jar, we made it nice and warm. We had our hot water, and the water was evaporating. We couldn't see it though. And then we had our hairspray and our ice. The ice made the water calm down a little bit. It took some of the energy out. And then the water vapor settled on top of the hairspray. So we cheated a little bit with this experiment. We sped up the process a bit. But I have another one that takes its time, but we get some really cool results. All right, so let's get going on our salt crystals. So again, you're gonna need a jar. You're gonna need a thing of boiling water. You're gonna need some salt, of course. So there's different types of salts. There's something called Epsom salt, and there's table salt, there's sea salt. So all of those will work fine, but Epsom salt is probably gonna be the best if you have it around. But if not, whatever you have lying around will work fine. Then you're gonna need at least 1 spoon for stirring. And then you're also going to need either another spoon or something like a popsicle stick that will be able to just balance on top of your jar. You're going to need a string, and then I'm also going to use a paper clip. You don't necessarily need it, but you might want to try it out. It's just a different way to get the crystals growing. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to take our piping hot water. Again, we have to be very careful. So you don't need actually too much. It depends on how big you want your crystals or your crystal garden to be. But if you add a lot, it is going to take longer to form because all this water needs to evaporate eventually. So I'm going to just take a scoop and stir it in until it dissolves. So you need to stir for quite a while, especially with these big ones. I'm using the Epsom salt here, but there are the different kinds, and I did try the table salt one as well, so I'll show you both of the results with those. So you take a little bit more. So we're going to keep adding salt. It's not really an amount because we don't really have an amount of water, right? But you just want to keep adding salt as long as it keeps dissolving. So once you see that the salt is just sitting on the bottom of the jar and not mixing in anymore, then that's enough. And then we can stop. So still mixing. I'm going to maybe add a couple of scoops this time. Alright, I may have to fast forward this in my video. Okay, so the salt has stopped dissolving, which is a good sign. So now, the next step, we take our other spoon or popsicle stick or whatever you have, and we're going to find our string. So the string just needs to be long enough so it's gonna sit in the water, but we also need to tie it just around whatever's gonna be balancing on top. So I'm just going to tie it to the middle of my spoon. You don't need to tie it that tight. Nothing's going to be pulling on it or anything. And then I did mention that paper clip. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clip the very end of my string. And this is just to weigh down my string because otherwise it will kind of just sit on top, which works as well. But the crystals will form in a different way because they're going to form along our string. So with weighing it down, it's going to kind of go more of an up and down growth rather than just on the top of our water. So then you just stick it in there. And there it goes. So now all we have to do is wait. We just got to put this somewhere out of the way. The water will dissolve, or the water will evaporate, I mean. And then we'll start to see some really cool results. Like I said, it's going to take a bit of time, so I will show you what mine look like in a couple days. The crystals will begin to form because of the different way the molecules, or the small particles, of the water and the salt mix. So when we first stirred together the salt and the water, the salt dissolved, which means that the particles of the salt separated and joined up with the water particles. And then over the next few days, as the water evaporates, it will only take its original water particles with it. And when it's doing that, it'll leave the salt particles behind and they'll come together and they'll form these really cool crystals. And that's where a string comes in because it gives our salt a place away from the water to reconnect. So that was our program this week. I hope you had fun with it. There are a lot of cool things you can do with these experiments. You can change them up a bit. You can add some color to your crystals with food coloring or something like that. And there's also a lot of cool stuff with evaporation, especially when it comes to weather. So if you're interested, you should definitely head down to the library and check some stuff out. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye.